dear participants, we are going to start with the very first session of this particular program, that is on introduction to different active learning strategies. So when it comes to the use of different active learning strategies, maybe in this particular program, we are going to discuss 7 or 8 different teaching methods for all of you. But when it comes to the selection of the teaching method, the one thing that we'd like to clear to all the members, that the selection of teaching method first, always as per the nature of the subject that you are going to teach, as per the level of the students you have at your institute, as per what kind of infrastructure facilities available at the institute, and most importantly, as a faculty, as a teacher of that particular classroom, what is your comfort and order. So with this particular note, we are going to start with the introductory part of this particular program, that is active learning strategy. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Tell me, I forgot; teach me, I may remember; involve me, I may learn." And Albert Einstein said, "Any fool can know, the point is to understand." So, when it comes to teaching the students in a classroom environment, it is the teacher who is going to involve the students in the process of learning. So, this engagement level of the student, the curiosity of the student need to be developed by the teacher. Up to some extent, it is also dependent upon the EQ, IQ of level available with the student. But yes, if the teacher is able to create an opening environment for the student in which the structured experiences must be given by the teacher, it is possible for us to engage the students in the process of learning. And when the students involved in the process of learning, they will be able to understand what they are learning, and they will be able to relate the information that might be useful for them. When we said the point is to develop understanding among students, so when it comes to the development of understanding, initially we need to introduce a subject to the student, and after giving a preliminary information, if the teacher is able to develop the basic understanding of that particular subject, if the teacher is able to develop a technical vocabulary to the branch specific, if the teacher is able to introduce to the student that these are the varied and various ways of learning and information that is available with you, maybe offline and maybe online, the student will be able to get maximum of the information, not only in the presence of the faculty, but also when the student is finding out something in his or her own personal time. So teacher can create an independent path of learning for the student by creating interest in that particular subject. So when it comes to the teaching, teaching is a combination of teacher and student activity supported by the best available resources to produce an atmosphere where learning can take place. So my first question to all the centers, so we move forward first to Manav Rachna University. So what kind of infrastructure resources available at your institute? Is it possible for the faculty to use and integrate technology in teaching learning? Any member from Manav Rachna University?
Hello everyone. I'm Dr. Savita Sharma. I'm from Manav Rachna University, representing here School of Education and Humanities. Sir, ma'am, as you asked this question about the infrastructure in Manav Rachna University, in particular here in department, all our classrooms are smart classrooms. In a sense, we have smart TVs, come projector facility. Moreover, we have a very functional ICT lab, which allows us to use it with students, and we have a lot of workshops and training being conducted regularly to train the faculty members to use the technology.
Thank you very much, Sabita ma'am.
Yeah, in
So,
fact, we are having this particular FDP in our smart classroom itself.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So the next institute is with us is NITR Chandigarh. Any member from NITR Chandigarh Center? Any member connected with us from NITR Chandigarh? From Baptala Institute? So when it comes to the use of different infrastructure resources, and it is being said that teaching is a combination of teacher and student activity supported by the best available resources. So as Savita ma'am said, in their institute, all kind of advanced teaching facilities are available, and it is easy for the teacher to integrate technology. Think of an institute located in a remote location where the basic facility, that is internet, might not be available due to non availability of electricity. So for that particular teacher, when I'm saying the best available resources, as a teacher, before conducting a class or before conducting or delivering a session to my student, I need to identify that what are the different resources that are available with me, and if X resource is not working when I'm engaging my students in the process of learning, is it possible for me to dismantle that resource and shift to an another approach? So teaching will happen with in the presence of the available resources. So maybe the teacher is having a chalk and board only in a classroom environment. It is the teacher who is going to plan activity by the use of that available resource. The purpose of identifying the different resources is to produce an atmosphere where learning can take place. So maybe a teacher from the subject of mathematics, maybe a teacher from the subject of numerical ability. That teacher do not need a PowerPoint presentation for XYZ class. That teacher only need a chalk and board method to be utilized. There must be another teacher in a class who is working on a project based activity. So that teacher want to show some of the recorded videos, that teacher want to display a three-dimensional drawing, that teacher want to integrate different technological resources to give a demo or to use a real project object in a classroom environment to formulate the thinking of the student. So it is the decision of the teacher that what kind of available resources I need to have to produce an atmosphere where learning can take place. There may be another faculty who think of that whether explaining a working principle of a machinery in a classroom environment, let's conduct a class in a laboratory environment where the machine is actually available, and when we are working on the machine with my student, I will be explain the working principle to all my students. So when I'm saying teaching, it is the teacher who is the leader of that particular class, and it is the teacher who is going to create an environment in which best learning can take place. So while sitting at NITA Chandigarh, I cannot say that from today's onward you are going to utilize all kind of advanced teaching resources. It is the resources that is available with you. With those resources, what can be possibly done to create a learning environment that need to be think of by a teacher. So when it comes to the teaching must results into equivalent amount of learning, and at the same time, when we are saying that teaching must results into equivalent amount of learning, as a teacher, I need to understand that in today's information age, maybe the resource that is available with my student, that resource is not available with me. So that is why also there is a demand of advanced teaching methodology where teacher and student can work together in a collaborative manner and share information that is available at both the end. So as a teacher, sometimes we need to listen to our students, we need to search for the information that is advanced by nature, and before starting any discussion in a classroom environment for this particular generation, we need to identify that what amount of information they are able to identify and what kind of information they need more from my side as a faculty. Because nowadays students are saying that this particular information, this particular subject, this particular course is already available online. I need not to go to the class to listen to the teacher. So I am able to find the information independently, and I am able to complete the subject by my own. So as a teacher, when I am dealing with this category of student or this group of student, I need to formulate classes rather than delivering a new information, creating discussion based activity. The classes must be full of activity, that we are not parrot reading the information that is available on multiple resources, but at the same time we are utilizing the classes for discussion and activity purposes where we all can learn together. So teaching must results into equivalent amount of learning, and depending upon what level and nature of students you have in an institute, Based on that, you need to create and design what kind of classes must be there for the student, so that we can fully involve them in the process of learning. Another important thing that we need to understand as far as teaching is concerned, these are the 7 principles of effective teaching that I have extracted from the literature only. And all the principles are talking about the student instructor contact, cooperation among students, encourage active learning, give prompt feedback, emphasize time on task, communicate high expectations, respect diverse talents and different ways of learning. So by identifying the different kind of information that is available, it is clear to us that classroom environment must be full of communication. It must be full of interaction. The teacher need to interact with the student, and teacher must be able to create interaction among students in a classroom environment. So when the student is listening to another student, or when the students are clarifying the doubts of the other student, it is possible for them to learn. So cooperation need to be there. The student, whatever they learn, whatever they listen in a classroom environment, they must be able to apply that learning. May not be in a real situation, maybe on a paper and pen kind of a test that is designed by the teacher. When the teacher is available with the student in a class, the verbal feedback need to be given to the student all the time, so that they are able to take corrective measure and corrective actions in the presence of the faculty. If there is any expectations at the part of the teacher, that expectation need to be very clearly defined and explained to the student, so that teacher and student come to know that what level of expectation need to be there, and how as a student I am able to fulfill those expectation. So when we are saying the interaction must be there, classes must be full of information, classes must be full of feedback, we need to understand that there are variety of learners in my class. There may be a kinesthetic learner who uses his or her senses in a classroom environment. He want to see things happen in front of him. He want to use those things. He want to uh, use all kind of senses, so that he able to relate with that information. There may be learner who is a visual learner, who demand PowerPoint presentation, who demand structured information and structured notes from the student, who demand all kind of information need to be presented in a written manner, who also wanted to have information in a graphical forms, or abstractions need to be there. There may be third student in my class who is a verbal learner. So that learner want information to be delivered in an by the use of any language. So when I'm saying there are variety of learners that are available with me in my class, as a teacher, I need to use variety of modes in a classroom environment, so that it is possible for me to cater the needs of my learner within that academic semester. I'm not saying in a day it is possible for me to cater the needs of all the students, but when we are planning for our courses, or when we are preparing our lesson plans, we need to think of that this particular content I can deliver by using the kinesthetic approach of learning. This content is possible for me to deliver by using verbal approach of learning. So depending upon the nature of the content also, we need to have mapping, that in what sense it is possible for me to deliver that information. So when it comes to the principles of effective teaching, we need to understand that with the help of interaction, with the help of cooperation, and by identifying the status of the students available with us in our classes, it is possible for us to create an engaging environment for the student. Next part that we need to understand is learning. So before I discuss this particular slide, I want to develop my understanding from all of you, that when it comes to the creation of a learning environment in your institute, what are the different approaches that is being utilized by all of you? Any member from the group? Yes, any member from the group? Yes, when it comes to the creation of the learning environment at the institute, what are the different approaches that is used by you as a teacher? So we have total of 86 participants connected with us. So my request to all the participants to kindly share information with each other so that we all can have better learning experiences during this particular program. Yes, there is one member, Dean ECE. Yes, sir, is there any question or you would like to add something to the question asked?
Rather than asking the question, I follow one simple method depending upon students' capability. I just give a real-time problem for any kind of concept to be explained. For example, being easy, I used to tell just simple example with respect to voltage stabilizer. If I say stabilizer, they will tell the answer that the output will be constant, sir. How to bring it constantly? Then I will go into circuits. Then I will go with the components. Now they will understand the importance of diodes and the Zener diodes. Now I will start teaching them how the principle and what principle these particular devices work, what are their limitations, how it can be connected to the circuit. Finally, how to get the desired output by having small design equations. This is how I go with the that's what simply saying reverse engineering. Tell the application, see how it is working, and how this is being done. Go back to the components. This is how I used to tell where I am seeing my students are learning best. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Sir, given an example of real-time teaching, and this teaching method is considered as ill-structured problem solving. So this is an high-end approach that teacher is using for the student to develop their learning ability. So thank you very much, sir, for the input. So every teacher, when we said that what kind of learning environment is created by the teacher in a classroom, and we are saying that it is as per the comfort and order of the teacher, every teacher have a different kind of expertise as far as the delivery of information is concerned. We may be very good when it comes to acquiring information and acquiring knowledge related to the branch, but when it comes to the delivery of the information, the every teacher, depending upon his or her own comfort, going to create an environment. But at the same time, we need to understand that for whom we are creating that learning environment, and organized experiences need to be there. So those organized experiences totally dependent upon the kind of the learning outcome that is designed by the teacher. So those learning outcome may be related to the knowledge of the student. Those learning outcomes may be related to the development of the skill factor among student population. Those learning outcomes may be related to the development of understanding among student population. So when we are saying that we are going to create different kind of learning environment for the student, we need to map those learning experiences with the learning outcome that is being defined. So why we are defining those learning outcomes and why we are going to map those learning outcomes with our teaching style and classroom environment, so that my student is able to apply that learning later on in his or her life, maybe in a real life scenario or maybe in the world of work. And those conditions are different from the instruction that is delivered by the teacher in a confined environment. So when we are developing or when we are creating a learning experiences, those experiences must be of variety, that help the student to formalize, that help the student to systemize the process of thinking, by the use of which he or she must be able to solve a problem later on in his or her life. So organized kind of experiences help the student to develop that kind of thinking ability. So when it comes to the teaching learning approaches and why the focus is on advanced teaching methodology, NEP 2020 recently envisioned the holistic education for the learner. So when we are saying the holistic education, it means there must be a different modes of education or different modes of pedagogical approaches that the teacher need to utilize. It is not only focusing on the technical know-how, but at the same time NEP is focusing on the development of different soft skills among students and development of the different life skills among students. It means in any institution, when the student is there enrolled for a formal education, there is a holistic development of the student as a whole. So NEP 2020 focusing upon that when the teacher is finding out the different pedagogical approaches, pedagogic is approaches are nothing but the teaching approaches. The teacher need to assess the transmission of the pre-existing knowledge, and the classes must be full of discussion and cooperation based activity that help to develop inquiry and critical thinking skill among students. So as the example given by Dean EC sir on the platform, that they introducing the student with the help of the object that is available, they introducing the concept to the students when the students are working together for a given activity. So it is not just the understanding of theoretical information, but at the same time students are collaborating for that particular activity, and there is a development of inquiry and critical thinking skill among students. Transformation of learner having idea about their purpose and identify while striving for the wisdom and compassion for holistic orientation about self and external environment. So when we are saying that the reflection based activities need to be given to the student, when there is yoga and meditation, when there is other related activities introduced to the student, it is that my student later on in his or her life able to make a balance between personal and professional environment. That student is able to go, able to be well aligned with the self need and able to map those self need with the surrounding environment. So an holistic personality need to be developed, for which dialogues need to be there in a classroom, collaboration need to be there, competition need to be there, cooperation need to be there. The student is able to define his or her own path of learning that can be independent, that can be self directed by the use of different problems. So when NEP is saying that there must be a holistic kind of environment in at institute level, and there must be use of different dialogues and collaboration, we need to understand that our students are different. Students are different in terms of their needs. Students are coming from the different educational background. They may have a different interest, they may have a different attention span, they may have a different language ability, or they may have different cultural background. So as a teacher, when I entered into my class and come to know there are students of variety of needs and variety of nature, as a teacher my classroom must be full of diverse kind of experiences, so that we will be able to develop as a community. So that learning community must be developed by the teacher by identifying the needs of the student. And when we are saying the students are different in terms of their IQ ability or in terms of their intelligence, so when I'm saying there are verbal or linguistic students or level of intelligence available in class, their needs may be the structured material, their needs may be the writing tool, their needs may be the discussion or the dialogue, and they are the student who learn best by hearing, seeing words, speaking, reading, writing, discussing and debating. There must be a student who is mathematically and logically intelligent, so that student want to work with relationship and pattern, and they are able to work with an abstract information. There must be student who is visual by nature, so that student want to visualize information, they want to have graphical abstraction, they want to have pictures, they want to have colorful classroom. So when I'm saying colorful classroom means, for an engineering student, when we are saying the brainstorming method of teaching, brainstorming method of teaching is going to enhance the imagination of the student. The student is able to do more creative work while working in a class. So when we are saying the bodily or kinesthetic student, those are the students who are able to use their senses. So they want some of the activities that are going to give them tangible experiences. They are going to do good in skill based or practical based session. There may be students in your class who are musical by nature. There may be students who are able to relate information, who are able to cooperate with each other, but at the same time they are competing and who are able to share information. There must be students in a class who are they working alone, having a self or space reflection, and they are able to do think independently. There can be naturalistic learner available in your class. So when I'm saying naturalistic learner, that student is able to identify information up to a larger extent, that student have an independent path of learning, and that student will ask question that always started with why. So when the level of curiosity is very high and student is able to identify his or her own path of learning, that student is able to complete many of the activities that is unique by nature. So when we are saying active learning classes means at one point of time or another I'm going to fulfill the needs of all the students in my class. So say for example, if there is a musical learner available with me in my class, so kindly have a look on this particular video.
Electron transport chain or respiratory chain.
I hope the video is available.
It is present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. The electron transport chain consists of various electron transport or electron carrier molecules.
Video is not visible, ma'am.
Electron transport
Yes, sir.
molecules
I
are
hope it
arranged
is
in a
available.
sequence.
Not visible
Transfer
to
electrons from
Video is not visual, ma'am.
like NADH,
Just give me a second.
FADH2 to the final
yeah,
electron
it's visible. Bro.
oxygen.
Now it is visual,
Visible.
ma'am.
The electron transport molecules are known as components of the respiratory chain. Some of them are proteins. However, non-protein carriers are also present. The position of a particular component in the respiratory chain depends on its redox potential. The components of the respiratory chain are arranged in the order of increasing redox potential. Starting compounds have negative redox potentials, and terminal components have positive redox potentials. Therefore, in the respiratory chain, electrons flow from negative to positive. In the respiratory chain, electrons flow from NAD to cytochromes via coenzyme Q, and then from cytochromes to molecular oxygen. Coenzyme Q also collects electrons from FAD. The transfer of electrons from substrates to NAD and FAD is catalyzed by dehydrogenases. At the electronegative end of the respiratory chain, NAD-linked dehydrogenases, malate and glutamate dehydrogenases, catalyze transfer of electrons from substrates to NAD directly, but electrons from substrates like pyruvate and alpha-ketoglutarate are transferred via FAD. In contrast, some FAD-linked dehydrogenases, like
So I want to give you a basic idea that when it comes to cater the needs of all the individuals available in your class, when we are saying the verbal learners, when we are saying the visual learners, when we are saying kinesthetic learners, so with these kind of presentation or these kind of video recorded session help us to fulfill the needs of all the students. So they are seeing the structured information to be presented to them. That information is recorded by nature, so they can also listen to this particular information. So this is an animated kind of a slide where the students are able to see the things actually happening. So when we saying that there are level of intelligence or multiple intelligence available with us in our classes, it is possible for us to cater the needs of the student with the use of these kind of video recorded sessions also. So the major requirement that when we are saying that there is a variety of learners in a class and we are able to create such kind of content for our students also, so at the same time we need to understand the aptitude of the student. So there may be student who enrolled for an XYZ program, but that student aptitude ability is not up to the mark. So as a teacher I need to find out that up to what extent it is possible for me to develop the ability of the student, and what at institute level or at department level we can do to improve the abilities among that kind of a student population. Personality, are they introvert, are they extrovert? If they are introvert, their self independent path of learning can be developed in a quick manner as compared to other extracurricular activity. If they are extrovert, they are able to present information, they are able to do team based or group based activity, but at the same time somewhere they are not able to collect the self feedback or self reflection that help them to define their path of learning. So depending upon the kind of personality, maybe introvert and extrovert by nature, when the teacher is giving variety of tasks to the student, the teacher is fulfilling the need of the student and at the same time motivating the student to perform certain activities activity that may not be the part of the routine of the student. So if the introvert student is presenting information for the very first time in front of the audiences of the class, it is difficult for that student to present information. But once it become a regular activity, the behavior of the student can be modified. When we are saying attitude of the student, so attitude need to be developed at institute level. The basic purpose of education is to modify the behavior of the learner. So whosoever enrolled for a specific program, the institute need to do something for that particular student so that behavioral development can be there. Motivate the student in a classroom environment by using a positive kind of vocabulary for them, and at the same time assess emotional intelligence of the student. Nowadays there are guides, counselors, mentors assigned to the student. So though all those facilitators and faculty member help the student to know and identify their emotional need and to adapt the environmental surroundings. So that also need to be there in a classroom environment. Another important thing that we need to understand for the creation and utilization of advanced learning strategy, I need, as a teacher, I need to know that what affect my learners. So as per you, what do you think that what is going to affect the learners of your class? Any member? Yes, any member from the group. What do you think that is going to affect the learners at your institute or in your department? Yes, any member who would like to share something?
I feel that it is teachers, understanding of the learners, and then creating the respective atmosphere, class environment affects quite a bit to the learner.
Thank you very much, Riddhi ma'am. Any another member who would like to add something? So as rightly added by ma'am, that when it comes to identifying that what is going to affect the learners of my class, it may be the immediate environment that is created by the teacher. So when I'm saying it may be the immediate environment that is created by the teacher, and in the previous slide we have said that personality characteristics are also going to change the attitude of my student. So immediate environment, what kind of activity, what kind of task that is designed by the teacher for that particular class, or that kind of environment, whether it is going to help the student to perform activity or whether the student need help from the faculty to maintain his or her performance. So immediate environment that is created by the teacher is going to affect the ability of the learner. Second is the emotional state of the student. So a teacher all the time act as a guide in a classroom environment, and it can also be a designated counselor by the department. So when it comes to the emotional state of the student, on the basis of the performance score, on the basis of the behavior that is shown by the candidate in a class, on the basis of the interaction that is created by the student with the fellow student, the teacher can easily judge and evaluate the emotional state of the student, and likewise the help can be offered to that particular candidate. There may be other societal needs also. So once the social skills developed at institute level, it is possible for the student to adapt with that particular kind of environment. So that also need to be focused by the institute. And there must be physical needs. So when we are saying physical needs, so physical need may be in terms of infrastructure facilities, physical need may be in terms of lightening of the room, physical need may be in terms of the comfort and order that is required by that candidate to learn something new. So that all are going to affect the learning ability of the student. So after identifying the needs of the learner. As a teacher, what is my role? So broadly, when we are saying what is my role as a teacher, it is as per the academic guidelines or administrative policies that is designed by the institute or by the department. So as a faculty of that particular institution, we are going to follow the policies and practices that is designed by the management. But in a classroom environment, the teacher is the leader of that particular environment. The teacher is going to create environment in which learning can happen. Most of the time the teachers are focusing on the syllabus and the curriculum that is provided to them. They are using the traditional approach of teaching, so they are using a lecture method again and again to interact with the student. And most of the time the teaching sessions are full of teacher directed activities rather than student directed activities. So when it comes to the teacher directed activity, we are not saying that these are not essential. For a new student in a particular field, it is essential for him or her to develop a basic level of understanding. And once that level of understanding is developed, the teacher need to promote critical thinking and inquiry based sessions in a class where students need to learn together, maybe in a group, maybe in a team, or maybe individually in the presence of the faculty. And when the students are working with the group, with the content, with the information that is provided to them by the teacher, they are not just fulfilling the requirement of the curriculum, but at the same time they are developing certain social skills that is the need of today. So role of the teacher is to have knowledge about that particular subject. So when I'm saying knowledge about that particular subject, it is not only that is provided in the curriculum, but what is happening around the world. Because as far as we as a faculty is concerned, we are for technical student or technical population, and the advancement in technology is very fast. So when I'm saying knowledge for the subject matter, and align your subject knowledge with the surrounding happenings in that particular subject area or in that particular field. Pedagogical information, how I'm going to deliver that information to my student. So a same subject for a diploma level student, a different type of understanding need to be developed. If the same curriculum for the mtech level student or for the btech level student, curriculum is in the form of the paragraph, it is the teacher who is going to design messages, deliver messages as per the level of the student. And what teaching approach that is to be utilized, that is also need to be identified by the teacher. Attitude of the teacher, so when it comes to the attitude of the teacher, teaching in NEP 2020, there must be in the time to come, there must be teacher intensive universities or research intensive university. The two basic classification is on the basis of the interest of the teacher. So teacher want to do more research based activity, so that teacher is more well aligned with the research intensive university. The teacher who is having passion for the student or the teaching learning environment, they need to teach the students a lot rather than performing more of the research based activity. So when we are saying the attitude of the teacher, somewhere the feedback need to be collected related to the teaching effectiveness and related to the performance of the faculty, not only from the fellow colleagues, but also from the students of his or her class. So that attitude can be clearly identified, and on the basis of that feedback, the attitude can be modified also by providing or suggesting him or her some corrective measures. Competency developed. So basically I'm a chemical engineer, so when it comes to the use of the different skills or the knowledge that I have acquired from my formal education, and when I'm mapping this information with the different sessions related to pedagogical or educational management practices, I need to map that information with the information that is already available with me. So maybe when I'm picking up some of the examples, maybe when I'm giving some illustrations, maybe when I'm giving some problem based or project based session, I select problem from my field of specialization. So when we said competency need to be developed, it is not only the knowledge or the pedagogical information that you have collected over the period of time or you may have experience. Competency means your teaching effectiveness need to be improved upon day by day with the help of different challenges that is catered by you in a classroom environment. And sometimes the teacher create his or her own challenges. Say for example, during pandemic, when we were very new to this online education system or to the online platform, we are self taught. We learn how to use these open sources that are available with us and how we are going to deliver information. So with experience in this particular profession also, we need to develop competency in align with the student demands or student need. If my student want to use their cell phone in a classroom environment, rather than restricting the student population, I need to think of that whether it is possible for me to create a quiz or a smaller game for my student. They can play while working with me in a class related to the subject matter. So that kind of competency also need to be think of by the teacher, just rather than collecting information related to the knowledge or pedagogical approaches. So in nutshell, when it comes to the use of different teaching learning activities, the three main elements that we need to consider is the learner, the teacher, the different pedagogical approaches, and with the help of these three elements, what kind of learning environment it is possible for us to create, what kind of resources do we need to have, and what is our organization mission and vision statement. As per that particular statement, all the activities need to be aligned. So another important thing that we need to understand is the kind of learning environment that we are going to create. So there is a student with an initial behavior. After going for that formal education, there must be a student with a modified behavior. And for this, it is not only the teacher who is working. The teacher demand different kind of resources. Those resources can be physical resources. Those resources can be human resources. So for example, as a teacher, I want to conduct a session that is full of technology. So maybe I need a technical support from the institute to be provided. Maybe I need resources in terms of technology to be there in a classroom so that I can utilize and give a structured kind of experience to my student. There must be resources related to recurring and non-occurring budget, or other resources also need to be there. Only then it is possible for the teacher to create an environment in which learning can take place. It is not that just by identifying that yes, there are variety of learner, and as a teacher it is possible for me to create variety of learning experiences. Those learning experiences demand time at the part of the teacher. The teacher need to put in effort, but yes, the resources need to be provided by the institute. Only then the teacher is able to do something for the creation of that learning environment. So mapping or interlinking of all the elements need to be there if the teacher wishes you to use advanced method of teaching. As per the literature, it is also said that genuine learning is active, not passive. Passive can be a learner, but when the learner involved in the process of learning, he or she needs to be an active member. Students learn what they care about and remember what they understand. So when we are saying that motivation of the student need to be developed at institute level, so that motivation help us to engage or develop curiosity among student population to learn something new. One must learn by doing the thing, for though you think you know it, you have no certainty until you try it. It means initially we need to introduce the subject matter individually to the student. Once that information is available with the student, we need to shift our approach to the team-based learning, where group of the students can work together in the activity that is designed by the teacher, and teacher is there to provide step by step information related to that particular activity. Once the student develop the command over that particular subject or over that particular activity, the teacher need to assign an independent job where they are able to apply their learned information, and they are able to find out an independent path of solving that problem at hand. So gradually we need to improve upon the quality of the work that is produced by the student. If the classes are full of discussions, if the classes are full of activity, it means the learning is active and student will perform most of the work. So when it comes to the use of the different teaching method, the most utilized teaching method by the faculty and different students, by the faculty and different institutions are lecture method. So my next question to all of you is, do you think that lecture method is an appropriate approach of teaching? If yes, why? If not, why? So my question is, do you think that lecture method is an appropriate approach of teaching? If yes, kindly provide us the reason. If no, you are also requested to kindly provide the reason for the same. So all the members can take 2 to 5 minutes to think about that information, think about this particular statement, and then requested to kindly give us an reply. I hope the activity is clear to all the members.
Ma'am, maybe request you to kindly repeat the statement. Because of this technical issue, we couldn't really catch the words.
So, ma'am, the maximum utilized method for teaching learning is a lecture method. If you consider that lecture method is a good approach for your subject, why? If it is not, why not? Yes, how many of you think that lecture method is a very good approach of teaching to the students? You can also write in the chat box. Yes, Sunita ma'am. Any member from the group who would like to add something to this? Yes, Sunita Sharma ma'am, is there any
Hello,
question?
ma'am. I'm Dr. Ritu Sharma from Manav Rachna University.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
I'm audible, ma'am?
Yes, you're audible to us, ma'am.
All right. So, ma'am, actually, see, this lecture method is that very traditional method, most used and abused, convenient to use because it's the easiest. But with the changing dynamics in the teaching learning process, we have now kind of made it more interactive, more constructivistic, where the students participate in the discussion in the class, problem based, discussion oriented, where we get
Yes, Riddhi ma'am, you're not available with us now. So as far as the response that we are able to receive till now is, lecture method is a good approach, but if the lecture is full of discussion and lecture is full of interaction based activities. So thank you very much, Riddhi ma'am, for the response you developed. So when it comes to the use of the lecture method, there are certain advantages and there are certain disadvantages also. So when it comes to the traditional lecture method, it helps us to cover the syllabus or cover the course content in a limited period of time. But at the same time, the retention of the material is start decreasing substantially after 10 minutes after, as per the literature in this particular field. Thomas in 1972 in his conceptual paper on teaching learning methodology clearly defined that retention of the material will be there if the teacher is using a lecture method again and again. Now think of the population we have nowadays in our classroom. If in 1972 students are not able to listen the lecture thoroughly delivered by the teacher, nowadays their attention span or concentration span of the students is very low as per the different survey reports. So in this particular generation, last in the first 10 minutes, if the retention of the material is up to 70%, at the last most of the students are physically available but mentally they are not available with the teacher. If the teacher is using one way method of delivery, during lecture. But as rightly added by Dr. Ritu ma'am from Manav Rachna University, when the students are actively involved in the process of learning, it may be interaction based activity, it may be discussion based activity, the most of the students will feel connected in that particular class. Now the question arises that how it is possible for me to convert the traditional approach of lecturing to an active lecture approach. There may be few of the techniques that can be adopted by the teacher, and those strategies are individual active learning strategy that can easily become part of any of the lecture. So when we are saying the student need to listen to the information, it means the student need to be the part of that particular activity. So any instructional method that is selected by the teacher, so I'm not saying that X method is very good or Y method is not good. Any instructional method that is selected by the teacher help the teacher to engage the students in the process of learning. That method comes under the umbrella term of active learning. So active learning classes means the students are performing certain meaningful activities and think about what they are doing. So active learning strategies are divided into three different categories. The very first one is, let me go to that slide first. So active learning strategies are basically divided into three different categories. One is individual active learning strategies, another is cooperative active learning strategies, and third one is the collaborative active learning strategies. So when we are saying cooperative and collaborative learning strategies, it is mainly used for the learners whose social skills we want to develop. Cooperative, collaborative means whose learning skills are already developed, and there are individual learning techniques that can become the part of any lecture. So when we are saying collaborative learning means, I simply differentiate between cooperative and collaborative. In nutshell, when we said that the cooperative learning, it is for the students whose social skills have not yet developed. We want to give training to those students to work in groups or work in team. So when it comes to the group division, it is the teacher who is going to decide that who will be the members of different group depending upon the ability of the student. So group size ideally is 3 to 4 student, and teacher will plan for the whole activity or for the whole lecture, and that activity specification chart need to be provided to the student. Based on that particular activity specification, the student will perform activities in the presence of the teacher. So teacher will observe, teacher will listen and intervene in a group when necessary. So when Ritu ma'am said classes must be full of interaction, classes must be full of discussion, we also need to add on that when the learners are matured, whose social skills are developed, for those learners the discussion may not be noisy. Those discussions are related to the subject matter. For the learners who are not matured enough, the classes may turn into discussion based classes, may turn into a noisy classroom, because students do not have that essential skill required to be maintained in a classroom environment. So that is why cooperative learning strategies are for the students of first, second, third, and fourth semester, and we are trying to develop certain skills among student population along with the coverage of the content. So it is the teacher who is going to define the whole activity, and in the presence of the faculty, the teachers are performing certain activities. And if required, the teacher will observe, listen, and intervene in a group as and when essential. And these are the classes in which the student will submit the activity at the end of the class. So these are of the shorter period of time. When we said collaborative learning, so any situation in which group of the student can work together. So when we are saying collaborative learning technique, maybe project based learning, a problem based learning, think, pair, share, jigsaw method of teaching, stump your partner, case study method of teaching, role play method of teaching, gaming and simulation. So there are many teaching methods available in which we consider that we have matured learner, social skills are already developed with them, and student can now utilize their social skills to do something in my classes. So student will define or negotiate between the group that what are the different activities and how they are performing that activity. all the time the teacher is not available with the student, so these kind of teaching methodology can be utilized for the more longer sessions, or for the smaller group in a tutorial class maybe, or maybe in a practical classes, where the teacher will direct question toward the student population, and student together will be able to find out the answers of that particular statement. So these are for the longer sessions, so maybe student will retain draft of the task performed by them, and once the task is completed they will submit that task to the student. So when it comes to the use of cooperative and collaborative learning strategy, the teacher first clearly need to identify that whether my students are able to work independently in a group or team, or whether I need to develop that kind of skill among student population. Depending upon the ability of the student, the teacher may select between cooperative and collaborative learning strategy. Another strategies that the teacher can easily utilize in a lecture method is individual active learning techniques. So when we are saying write an example, what do you do next? 1 minute paper. The muddiest point means at the end of the lecture when the teacher is asking that what is the most complex part of the lecture today? Do you need me to revise this particular information to all of you again? Or do you need to have a structured notes or a material to understand the content fully? Another may be polls, voting, one page lecture summarization, paraphrasing, list pros and cons, daily and weekly journal, or reflection based activity. So, all these activities can become the part of the traditional lecture approach, and it is possible for the teacher to engage the students in the process of learning. So, broadly, we have three different categories of advanced teaching methodology. One is individual active learning technique, second is cooperative active learning technique, and third is collaborative active learning technique. So, when we are planning for the courses, at that stage, we need to find out that what are the different things that we need to consider and give variety of experiences to the student. Next question arises Next question arises that whatever teaching method that is selected by you, that teaching method also need to be mapped with the learning outcome. And when it comes to the learning outcome, it is always defined with the help of Bloom's taxonomy and started with an action verb. We will cover this concept in detail in the next class after lunch. So when we are saying Bloom's taxonomy, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating, and based on the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy, these are the different teaching methods that are available with us. So if you want your student to define something, it means your class may be with an activity where the student is able to create a concept map to revise that information. Maybe it is a 1 minute paper or one page lecture summarization. If you want your student to apply something, project based classes, practice based classes, demonstration based classes, think, pair, share. When we said analyze something, it can be structured problem solving, fishbowl method of discussion, application based exercises, peer review. When we said student is able to synthesize information, visioning and futuring, problem based, project based learning, concept map, critics, or case study. For the creation based activities, the classes must be project based classes. So when we are saying different learning outcome, if you want your student to define something, go for remembering and understanding. If you want your student to apply something or explain something, then it is analysis. When you give an open-ended statement to the student, you want to enhance creativity among student. Ill-structured problem need to be given to the student sometime where they hypothetically assume the different dimensions of that particular problem. Sometimes they reframe the problem again and then give solution to that particular problem. So depending upon the learning outcome also, the teacher is going to design different classes. Third part that we need to consider before the selection of any advanced instructional method is the requirement of active learning classroom. Do you think as a faculty that it is very easy for us to create such kind of classes? Any member from the group? Dr. Alpana Singh ma'am asked muddiest point. So muddiest point is a teaching activity, ma'am, in which at the end of the session, as a teacher, if you identify that the content is very complex by nature for my student to understand in the very first session, after giving a meaningful pause, maybe after 15 minutes of the lecture, you ask your student that what is the most complex point of today's lecture that I have delivered till now. So student will revise that information and able to frame few of the question related to the complex matter. So that is muddiest point. So that is an active learning strategy we can easily incorporate in our traditional lecture approach. If most of the students are not able to understand the content fully, it is a clear hint to the teacher that before planning for a further instructional message, the teacher need to revise or develop understanding of an information for the previous content that they need to understand. So this is an active learning strategy, muddiest point. I hope it is clear to you, Alpana ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So yes, my question to all of you was, do you think that it is very easy for us to use advanced instructional strategies in a classroom environment?
No, ma'am. It will take a lot of planning before the class and checking all the resources, and then we will act according to our needs. But we
Thank
should include some of these strategies in
Yes,
today's
thank you so
environment.
much, Alpana ma'am. As rightly added by ma'am, that when it comes to the creation of active learning classroom, it is the teacher who is going to create the environment for learning, and the student will become the focal point of that particular classroom. It means the student will be the in charge of the activity that he or she is going to perform. And when it comes to the design of the different activity, these are not the simple routine kind of activities that we are going to give to our student. Suppose the teacher is giving written assignment again and again to the student, that is of no meaning when we are using advanced instructional method. The assignment also need to be designed by the teacher in a unique manner, and students are reflecting upon what they are doing in the presence of the teacher. It means the classes are going to be full of questions, and teacher must be ready with those responses. So when we are saying that whether it is easy for us to create these kind of classes in our institute, we need to understand that teacher must be expert for his or her subject. So when we are saying expert in terms of the content, so textbook references, web references, mapping of those resources need to be done beforehand by the teacher before the creation of these kind of classes. In the initial phase, it is very difficult for the teacher to create active learning experiences because till date our students are habitual of listening to the information. It is not very easy for them to shift their focus from teacher centered classroom environment to the student centered classroom. So somewhere it is very difficult for us, or we may have a negative kind of a feedback from the student population that teacher is doing nothing. It is only the group of the students who are performing certain activities while sitting into the class. So that mindset also can be a barrier for the creation or uses of these advanced teaching strategy. As far as teaching preparation is required, when we are mapping offline and online resources, it need more time, it need more energy at the part of the teacher. Students are also not very habitual, and it is very difficult for them to adapt the new ways of learning. So that need to be think of by the teacher before the creation of this kind of an environment, and this is a challenge that we as a teacher need to accept. And there are certain strategies. It must be the use of the different active learning strategy. So one day I'm taking or engaging a session by using a active lecture approach. Another day, when it comes to the creation of an environment, rather than using a lecture method, I'm creating a fishbowl discussion class. Third day, I'm assigning a simple mini project to my class students to perform upon. Fourth day, I create a blended kind of a learning environment where my student can interact with information that is available offline as well as online. So classes must be full of different active learning strategy. Time for pre-class preparation is not much as compared to recycle the old lecture notes. So we need to have resources in a class. We need to be prepared with our lesson plan. Once the lesson plans are available, it is easy for the teacher to plan for the activities in a classroom. Group activities can be planned. Teaching does not equal to learning. So as a teacher, I need to accept the fact that my student may have more information that is advanced by nature, so that acceptance also need to be there at the part of the teacher, and students will enjoy the experience once the teacher is able to create that experience for the student. So initially it is very difficult for us to utilize these kind of a classes or organize these kind of sessions in a classroom or in an institute, but over the period of time when our pre-planning is there, we are able to design courses in such a manner it is easy for us to conduct activity based classes for our student. So when it comes to the design of an active learning classroom, there are 6 different steps that we need to follow, and these are all are the compulsory step. So first is attainment of initial learning. As a teacher, I need to identify who my learners are and what their existing level of information available with them. So based on that particular information assessed in the previous or in the initial year of the semester, initial days of the semester, I need to identify the different learner intended objective. So as a teacher, what I want my student to do, so that intended objective need to be classified by me, and those intended objective need to be conveyed to the student with the help of different learning outcome. So conception of the goals may be with the help of different learning outcome. Then tricks of reaching to the goal. So as a teacher, you need to identify that what are the different tips and tricks. So means what are the different media and what are the different methods that you are going to utilize to achieve these kind of learning outcome that you have defined earlier. Inquiry and expedition means the classroom must be full of assessment activities, and based on those assessment activity, the teacher need to find out and verify that what more we need to do or what less we need to do for this category of students. Evaluation of learning, so there may be a final test, maybe MST, that is designed by the teacher, so that MST provide us a clear picture that what is happening in a classroom environment and how we can improve upon. But yes, these are the 6 essential steps that we need to follow for the creation of active learning classroom at institute level. So yes, is there any question from the participants? We have only 15 minutes left with us. If you have any question, you are requested to kindly unmute and ask. Yes, any member, if you have any question. I hope I'm audible to all the members.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. If you have any question, you're requested to kindly unmute and ask, or even you can write in the chat box.
Audible now, ma'am?
Yes, you're audible to us, ma'am. Yes. Yes, Riddhi ma'am, is there any question? So Alpana ma'am, as far as fishbowl method of discussion, Tuesday in the very first session, we are going to cover this teaching methodology.
Okay, ma'am.
So thank you very much, ma'am. So no question is available with us in the chat box, and we are going to move for our next slide. That when it comes to the use of the different teaching methodologies, specifically for our student population, we also need to understand that there must be integration of social media in teaching learning nowadays. So for a teacher from the subject of language or for the development of communication skills among students, rather than giving written assignment, I can simply assign one activity, that is blog writing, to my student. The classroom can be uploaded, or the live classroom can be given to the student with the help of Facebook Live. The Twitter can be created by the student or by the teacher in an institute to collect information, to collect opinion of the student, or to collect perception of the student related to the various happenings in the surroundings. So when we are saying the holistic development of the student, and there must be a balance between inner self and between the outer environment, it means all the student fact opinion need to be heard at institute level. In personal life they need to be there, but at institute level also all kind of opinion, all kind of fact, all kind of perception of the student need to be collected, evaluated, and then validated to give them a proper guidance that what an individual need to behave in a society. So that kind of information need to be there. Live in chat session, so these session help us to create discussion in an online environment. So when these sessions are there, then internet policies need to be very clearly defined to the student. So that part we are going to cover in the first session, Wednesday, on blended learning. So integration of social media help our students to be in touch with each other, and at the same time when the students are using maximum at times of media only, and if the content information is available with the student, there are great chances that student are going to share those resources, listen to that information, and then use that information later on in their different activities. So integration of media is also need to be there. So as far as different cooperative learning strategies are there, numbered head together, this particular strategy can be easily utilized during the lecture method also. Visioning and futuring is a teaching technique that we are going to utilize for design based classes, problem based classes, or project based classes. So mainly it is being utilized for project based classes as far as engineering population is concerned. Jigsaw is a method where students come to the conclusion by interacting with each other. So it is again a cooperative strategy. Concept map help us to visualize information in a graphical manner, and it can also be a very good tool as far as revision of information of theoretical revision of theoretical information is concerned. So concept map is also being utilized by the students nowadays. Think, pair, share, students with the fellow student, and then that student with the rest of the student is going to discuss about the problem. So that is again in the presence of the faculty. So that technique is covered under cooperative strategy. When it comes to the collaborative learning strategy, the very first one is fishbowl method of discussion. So when it comes to the coverage of the course content, it is not possible for us to cover the content by creating discussion. So in under teaching methodology, there is a specific kind of discussion we can design and create as far as subject coverage is concerned. So one such method is fishbowl. Another is stump your partner. So you can ask help from the fellow partner or from the fellow student to cover the content and clarify about the doubts. Case study method of analysis help us to develop an understanding about conceptual as well as abstract information, and student is able to see the problem from the different dimension and able to give multiple solutions for a given problem. May not be concise, but yes, the habit of critical thinking and inquiry can be developed with the help of case study method of analysis. Problem based learning, sometimes ill structured problems are given to the student to enhance their creativity. Sometimes the simple problems or the labor intensive problems need to be given to the student. So when they're working with the problem, their concentration span is going to be increased. They are able to identify the different resources to solve a problem at hand. They are able to synthesize and evaluate information that is collected by them and give solutions to that particular problem. Again, problem based learning sessions are longer session. So for the longer classes, the teacher need to design activity that they are performing and improving on a periodic basis. Blackboard Share is an online app in which the student can create collaboration between the different students, and even they can call on board the different experts from various universities to interact with the students about the problems or about the subject matter. So in this particular program, we are going to discuss few of the cooperative strategies and few of the collaborative strategy to give you a feel that when it comes to the use of advanced instructional method, what can be the probable approaches the teacher may utilize. So in this particular session, we will provide you an overview that what we mean by active learning, why it is essential for us to write learning outcomes. When it comes to creation of the learning environment, understanding learner and understanding teacher needs also must be there. When it comes to the creation of the content, there can be offline information or there can be online content or resources created by the teacher. There can be variety of advanced teaching methods used as per the level of the students available with you in a class. And when it comes to the development of the creativity or identification of the problem, it is the teacher who is going to utilize methodology that help us to develop critical thinking or inquiry thinking skills among students. So this particular session will set a context of this program, that why we need to have all these sessions, to understand that pedagogical information is not only the delivery of the knowledge, it is also the kind of approach that is utilized by the teacher to create a dynamic learning environment. So these are few of the references that I have utilized for the creation of the content. So this is all from my side. If you have any question, you are requested to kindly unmute and ask. Yes, any member, if you have any question. Yes.
In cooperative active learning, we can do it in every class, like we are devoting certain 10 minutes at the end of the
Yes,
lecture.
ma'am. As far as the cooperative learning strategies are concerned, it requires a time of 15 to 20 minutes only, depending
Okay.
upon which teaching method you are going to utilize. So tomorrow, when we are discussing about different cooperative strategies, so maybe two or three we are going to discuss. So in those particular strategy, you must be clear that it's only a 15 to 20 minute that is essential for the teacher for the creation of such kind of a learning environment.
And then teacher will conclude that whether the answer was right or
When it
not.
comes to the cooperative learning classes, ma'am, all the activities designed by the teacher only. So teacher will
Okay.
guide the student step by step to complete that activity on time.
Okay.
The teacher
Okay.
will be the major part of those activity, but yes, students are performing. Riddhi Khanna ma'am is asking, clarify the difference between cooperative and collaborative. So cooperative learning strategies are for the classroom sessions. So in a lecture method, you can easily incorporate. And when we are saying cooperative, we consider that students are not matured enough and their level of understanding is not yet developed. So that is why we are going by cooperative learning. When we are saying collaborative learning, so project based classes are basically a good example of a collaborative learning, where we provide flexibility and autonomy to the student to complete a certain project. Supervisor as a faculty is there, they are guiding the student as and when required, but all the time the teacher is not providing their input. Teacher is not engaging those classes in a specific classroom in a specific slot. It is the group of the students who are going to decide that what they are going to perform in a project based classes. So what kind of project they are going to develop. So collaborative active learning strategies are basically for more matured learners to whom we consider that their social skills are already developed. So I hope it is clear, ma'am. Next, there is one participant, events BCOP, how to make a non-listener in a class to make attentive. When the classes are full of questions, when you call the student by their name, ask few questions, the student will become active. When there is a meaningful pauses in a class, so say after 10 to 15 minutes, there must be a story kind of illustration in a class. The humor is created by the teacher in a class. when you ask the student to perform certain activities within the group or with the help of the fellow student, the student will become more active. So when we said how to make them attentive, so whatever you are delivering in a class, if that delivery become the part of your MST or part of the class text, the student will listen to the teacher carefully and perform certain activities as directed by the teacher. So this question is basically for the classroom of active listening. So these are the few simple strategies that we can utilize to make them more attentive and actively listening about that information.